Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck and I'm here this week with Matt Dietrich of Reboot Illinois and Kerry Lester in Springfield with the Associated Press. Thanks for being with us, Kerry. This week we wanted to talk about the 2015 budget situation, which has gotten more and more dramatic and has really prevented the state's lawmakers and the governor from focusing on the 2016 budget. So everybody thought they had passed a bill to take care of the remaining portion of the 2015 fiscal year. They gave the governor power to sweep a bunch of funds, and they cut a little bit back, 2.25% from most state agencies. But just before the Easter Passover weekend, the governor let it be known that he had to cut off funding from a number of different programs, not the least of which was the Autism Project, funeral expenses for the indigent,
epilepsy programs, after school programs, a whole lot of things. And the reason was they allowed Rauner to sweep a lot of special funds to close $1.3 billion of the gap. Then he had $300 million more of savings that they had to find. They say that they couldn't find them, therefore they had to cut this extra $26 million. Now, that outraged a lot of Democrats, of course. We've had a couple of hearings. And Kerry, the Senate yesterday took some action that looked like it might reverse this, but I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. Are these cuts going to be restored? What's going on down there?
Well, Matt, that's a very good question. I want to back up a little bit to the beginning of this week when we had a panel formed by House Speaker Michael Madigan that examined exactly what happened with Rauner's so-called Good Friday action, suspending a number of these grant programs in total about $26 million. So you had the governor's new budget director, Tim Newting, used to work in the state Senate. He was a chief of staff for Senate Republican leader Chris Raune. And he strikes me as a very human, approachable guy. He got up there before this panel of lawmakers, and he said that he thought that he had articulated the governor's plan in budget discussions about this fiscal year 15 fix, but he actually apologized if there was any sort of miscommunication out there. So the way he explained the governor's actions was that in addition to this piece of legislation that was negotiated by lawmakers, as you mentioned, the $1.3 billion in fund sweeps plus the $300 million in cuts, that was working in concert with these grant suspensions that were authorized by the governor. So he explained this as kind of a two-pronged deal. A number of lawmakers, a number of Democratic lawmakers who supported this legislation said that they were caught by surprise. Had they known that Rauner was going to move to suspend grants come Good Friday, they might not have voted for this deal after all. So I think this does kind of throw a wrench in the mix as we look to 2016. There's a trust issue involved. And certainly, as you guys know well, we are now in a divided government for the first time in 12 years. So there's a question of House Speaker Michael Madigan and what this does to advance his agenda and how Governor Rauner may respond.
Now, Kerry, the Illinois Senate then this week passed a bill very quickly that would authorize the sweeping of more funds. They say they went in, we found $26 million. We could replace all this autism funding and epilepsy and all these other programs that got cut. Now, my first reaction was, oh, okay, the House, this will be a slam dunk, but it sounds like Speaker Madigan is skeptical of this and that it's not going to be so easy.
That's right. And if you remember, House Speaker Michael Madigan, when the fiscal year 15 fix was being negotiated, he got up on the floor and he made a comment that the autism program would not be touched. So I think that there was a bit of an element of public embarrassment here. Madigan, is like seen as a man who can be taken for his word. And here he said something, and here there was a cut that he said wasn't going to occur. So now he has not come out and he has not said what the House is going to do one way or the other on the legislation that was passed by the Senate. But there is some speculation in the Statehouse that he may be wanting the governor to take a taste of his own medicine. Madigan spokesman Steve Brown, I talked to him the other day. He said he's very non-committal on what he planned to do with the legislation that's sponsored by Senator Dan Kachowski. He said if it gets over here, we'll take a look. But it passed yesterday. There has been no movement today. Meanwhile, there's been a lot of movement on a number of other bills.
So what's it going to take to get something done on this? And then, what is the prospect for the 2016 budget, which is supposed to be done by the end of May, if not definitely by July 1st when the new fiscal year starts, because we're talking about 1.3 billion in cuts that need to be made versus $6+ billion in cuts that need to be made in that budget. So any hope for something really being worked out here? What will it take, Kerry?
Well, I think Madeline is there's always some horse trading going on here in Springfield, and although Governor Rauner campaigned on the fact that he did not want to increase taxes, you've seen him in some public statements recently kind of open the door to the idea of increasing revenue if he gets what he wants with his so-called turnaround agenda. So there, to my knowledge, was not a leaders meeting this week. There was one last week where the leaders of the legislature as well as Rauner talked about breaking out into working groups with different lawmakers and focusing on different pieces of this turnaround agenda. Workers' compensation, reform to the justice system, various things like that. And so we're kind of watching that, watching to see who is going to be on these different groups, and I think that'll give us an indication of some compromise that may be coming or not by both sides.
Now, it's a little bit different from what we've seen traditionally over the years, which is the four leaders and the governor getting together at the end and hammering out the deal, these working groups that have been talked about. You think in the end it's still going to take Madigan and Rauner getting together at least to resolve this 2015 problem? What do you predict, Matt?
Well, it seems like right now there is a big issue of trust, and I'm not sure how much we as outsiders are seeing about this. Clearly,
trust or gamesmanship?
Well, it's kind of both. On March 26th, you had this great day of kumbaya and across the aisle cooperation, and here's Bruce Rauner walking onto the Senate floor and handshaking with Senate President Cullerton. Well, then 8 days later, we find out that the deal that Tim Newting says, no, there was no guarantee. But from my reading of the bill, it's pretty clear there was some implicit deal making going on. So I think there's got to be some questions going on in the background here. I don't see this whole episode as being a very good harbinger of things to come, or a harbinger of good things to come, I should say.
All right. In the meantime, Kerry, you were also in the House when they passed a bill that has to do with the Obama Presidential Library and the Lucas Museum. What's that all about? Because I know a lot of Reboot readers were concerned about public funding going to the Obama Library. Is that what this bill was about, or something else?
It's not, Madeline. This kind of emerged very late yesterday. You kind of heard a collective groan in the press room when these late committees were assigned. So about 6 o'clock, 6:30, Senator Kwame Raoul, who is President Obama's successor in that Senate district, he advanced a piece of legislation that would clarify existing state law to allow museums to be built on public parkland. So he was saying that while the various bids to get the Obama Presidential Library, Chicago being one of those places, as well as New York and Hawaii, he said that this was a way to show the world that Chicago was ready to receive this bid. But what is also going on here is the discussions and the lawsuit that is involving the effort to bring the George Lucas Star Wars Museum to Chicago. What Lucas wants, and this is backed by Mayor Rahm Emanuel, is to build this museum on property that it's filled in lakefront. I believe it's a parking lot that's located kind of close to Soldier Field, but it's still technically considered a protected waterway. So Friends of the Park group has filed suit against this, and this piece of legislation would clarify existing state law and in a way function to support their court case.
Okay, so you expect that to go to the governor?
It is now headed to the governor. It passed the Senate this morning, then it passed the House. The governor's spokesman will not say one way or the other. He's choosing not to comment on the governor's actions on this.
All right, well, we'll be watching for that, and we'll check back in with you on it later. That's it for this week's edition of Only in Illinois. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next edition.